In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, the one in whom we seek refuge from our evil actions and from the evil within ourselves. And whomever Allah has guided, no one could mislead, and whomever Allah has led astray, no one can guide. And I bear witness and testify that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad is His servant and messenger. My brothers and sisters, as you may have found, evil and wickedness, filth and wrong has become so widespread that it becomes difficult to tell between good and evil anymore. It becomes difficult to tell between what is pure and what is wicked, what is filthy. It's so widespread anywhere you look. There's always a counter argument to whatever you might say, to the extent that you don't know what is good anymore. You don't know what is pure. You don't know what is right. A Muslim must be aware, must be educated, and he has to believe what he learns. He has to believe in that which he is teaching, and he has to act upon that which he knows. When you read the Quran and you come across the verse that says, "Say, O Muhammad, Al-Tayyib and Al-Khabith are not the same." And we're going to use these two terms instead of good and evil. He says Al-Tayyib, and the word Tayyib means all that is good, all that is pure. And the Khabith means the opposite, all that is evil or all that is wicked. So he says, "Say, O Muhammad, that Tayyib and Khabith, good and evil, they are not equal, even though you may like the abundance of evil, the abundance of Khabith." Do you notice sometimes when you see rich or wealthy people, and all you could think about is, I wish I can have like what they have. But how did they attain it? Through means of filth, through means of wickedness, through means of wrong. And this is what the ayah is talking about. You may see somebody who has so much, it's in abundance. And then you say, you work day and night to try to get a small portion of that. But what do you have to sell from your religion in order to attain that? What do you have to get rid of? The purity, the sincerity. Not that you cannot be wealthy and be a good Muslim. You can. But the reality is, once you start dealing in matters of this world in abundance, you have to trade with things which Allah does not like. You have to start going and applying for loans, interest. You have to sell things which are not permissible. You have to consume things which are not permissible. And as a result, you affect yourself from the most powerful dua that you could have had, the most powerful supplication, one of the most powerful actions that you could have had. You ruined it because you decided you wanted to taste that khabith, you wanted to taste that filth, because you've seen it was in great abundance, you've seen it was thrown in your face, it was all around you, and you thought it would not affect you. By Allah, it will affect you if you are not regular in your worship, in your deeds, in your remembrance of Allah. It will affect you. The Prophet, or in that same hadith, Allah the Almighty and Exalted, He said, O messengers, Ya ayyuha rusul, O messengers, eat from that which is pure and do good deeds. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah commanded the messengers and He commanded the believers with the same thing. And he said, "O you who believe, eat from that which is pure." Do you think that eat from that which is pure simply means avoiding pork? I've seen Muslims, wallah, not pray one single rak'ah, unit of prayer, yet they don't eat pork. Is that what makes you a Muslim? You cannot decide. If you have sins in your religion, who doesn't? We all do. But you can't say your description of Islam is simply you not eating pork. Where did your prayers go? Where did your sincerity go? Where did your will to do good, where has that gone? In the hadith, the same hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions some descriptions about how a person's supplication is accepted. And he mentions some descriptions that are the opposite. For he said, a man shall come to Allah, or shall make a supplication while he's traveling. The Prophet ﷺ told us that when a person is traveling, his supplication is accepted. Just like in the hadith found in Sahih Muslim, that the Prophet ﷺ says, there are three people who Allah does not refuse their supplication. He said, the one who is traveling, and the one who has been wronged, the one who has been oppressed, and a father for his son, or a father against his son. Be careful, my brothers and sisters, for we think sometimes we can oppress anyone and get away with it. We can scam, we can rip off anybody, but if they decide they're going to raise their hands and make supplication against you, you have created an enemy with Allah. Be honest in your dealings. Be honest in your speech. Be honest in your interactions. Don't seek vanity and praise in what you're doing. Do it for the sake of Allah, not because of some worldly gain. The Prophet ﷺ, he also said, and the father who makes supplication for his son. You know, when you're angry, and it's common for mothers and fathers to make supplication against their children. They say that which is equivalent in their own language, may Allah take you away. They're upset with their sons or their daughters, say, may Allah take you away from me. This dua, it's highly likely that Allah will accept it. So why don't you exchange it by saying, may Allah guide you. Allahu yahdik. May Allah protect you. May Allah forgive you. Why don't you do this instead? Because you're ghadban. You're angry. Shaitan has taken over. Going back to the hadith, he says, the person is traveling, he is disheveled and dusty, meaning his hair is ruined, his clothes are old and covered in dust, and he raises his hands up to Allah. And he says, "O my Lord, O my Lord." He mentions 4 descriptions. He's traveling, he's in a state of need, he is using the proper manners by raising his hands up to Allah to call Him. And he's saying, "Oh my Lord." That's how you have the proper adab. You want to make dua to Allah? Stop laying down and being lazy. Sit up. Put your hands up. It was even said that some of the Salaf, they would go, or one of the Tabi'een, he says that his nephew was in prison. So what he did was he went home and he put on some old clothes and he took a cane and he walked out. And when they seen him, they said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Astakinu li Rabbi." He said, "I'm humbling myself for my Lord." Humble yourself. Don't see yourself as so high when you're full of sins. We're all full of sins. Humble yourself for Allah, no matter how poor, how rich you might be. Humble yourself. So after he said those four things, he mentioned four opposites. He says, yet his food is impermissible. His drink is impermissible. His clothing is impermissible. And the word that was actually used was haram. And finally he said his nourishment is impermissible. Sometimes we boast or brag or feel proud if we were able to earn extra money from somebody when we were not supposed to earn that money. We had no right to it. We might have scammed them. We might have hid a defect in a product. And then when we sold it, we feel good. I got rid of that. Your Lord and my Lord and the Lord of all of mankind sees it, wallah. And you're held accountable. You forfeited. You got rid of your dua so that you can get a portion of dunya. So when he says his food is haram, look at the things we eat. Sometimes we can care less about what this ingredient is in there. It will clearly say pork or clearly say wine, and he'll say, it's not a big deal, let me eat it. Sometimes he will go to a restaurant and that restaurant is cooking with wine and he says it's no big deal. It's burnt out. Be afraid that maybe it's not burnt out. Maybe it's still in there. Maybe the grease from the previous meat was still on what you had. So when you can, be cautious. Be cautious of those things. And your drink as well. And your nourishment. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, it was said to him, "O Sa'd, we notice that from all of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your supplication to Allah is most accepted from all the other companions. It happens so quickly." They said, "Why?" He said, "It is because that any morsel, any food that I take in place in my mouth," he goes, "I know where it came from, and I know where it's been." He was cautious. It wasn't just merely, I made this money, and now everything is okay for me. It's not like that. Because when you start doing things like this, where you don't care about khabith and tayyib, you don't care which interactions, because you live in a non-Muslim society, and the standard is not Islamic practice. So you may see non-Islamic practices and think it's okay. And you cannot tell the difference. So educate yourself and learn which one you can do and which one you cannot. Learn which one is permissible and which one is not. So that way, when you call upon Allah for forgiveness and mercy and to aid you in your need and to aid you for the things that are harming you, it's accepted. Because at the end of that hadith, do you know what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? He said his food is haram, his drink is haram, his nourishment is haram, his clothing is haram. So how will Allah accept his dua? That was the last thing in that hadith. It means that it is highly unlikely. Still possible. Allah is the most merciful, of course. But it's highly unlikely that your supplication will be accepted when you are doing these things. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those that have pure dua, ameen. May He make us from those that purify our food and drink, nourishment and clothing, ameen. May He make us from those that strive on the path of good, ameen. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى بمنه وكرمه أن يحبب إلينا وإليكم الإيمان وأن يزينه في قلوبنا ويكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. اللهم إنا نسألك الفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار. اللهم إنا نسألك الفوز بالجنة والنجاة من النار. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا دينا إلا قضيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا إلا يسرتها يا رب العالمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلوا وسلموا على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. وأقم الصلاة.